Welcome to the Consult Club, your trusted space for real conversations about beauty, health, and personal growth. Here, we cut through the noise, bringing you expert insights and rigorously vetted products so you can feel confident in your choices and truly connected to yourself and others. I'm your host, Laura Beecham, founder of ShopDerm. With my medical expertise and passion for skin health, I'm here to empower you with science-backed knowledge in the industry's most coveted, expert-tested beauty products. Because when it comes to skincare and self-care, you deserve nothing but the best. On today's episode, Jenny Pancoast joins us. Jenny is an entrepreneur at heart and a Southeast-based stylist. She provides wardrobe consulting services to clients and editorial partners across the country. Jenny's career experiences range from working for designer Nanette Lepore in New York, representing fashion brands in Bergdorf Goodman, overseeing ad campaigns for a national shoe retail brand, serving as director of marketing for multiple real estate companies, and consulting on branding and customer experience for an international firm. Through all of Jenny's work, she realized the power of personal branding and the desire of modern women and men to create a style that serves them well through all aspects of life, from impactful careers to the gift of parenthood and everything in between. Jenny believes that wardrobes have the power to impact meaningful points in our lives and in our careers. She seeks to drive empowerment and elevate confidence with each client she meets. Most recently, Jenny has added to her portfolio career and advanced yet another passion, something we share, skincare. This summer, Jenny is launching 24 Skincare, an anti-aging brand that brings cutting-edge, sustained-release technology to the skincare industry, creating a first-of-its-kind product line and driving highly impactful, age-reversing results 24/7. Jenny is a native of Atlanta, Georgia, and is fortunate to live in Greenville, South Carolina with her husband, her son, and her dog. Listen in to hear all about Jenny's journey. Okay, so Jenny, so excited to be chatting. We've got a lot to cover. And also, we are going to be doing an event in Greenville. So Consult Club event. Jenny will be our host. So you can check that out in the show notes if you would like to join us. We'd love to have you there. And Jenny and I met, I think I originally invited Jenny to a influencer luncheon when ShopDerm first launched. And Jenny splits her time between Greenville and Atlanta and was not able to come, but was like, hey, let's go to lunch. And we have been fast friends ever since. Yes. We went to lunch and it was just delightful. It's always so nice to connect with other female entrepreneurs who are like genuine and authentic. And like, I mean, that lunch was so much like, how are you doing all of this? And like, how are you and you were pregnant with your first.
I was very pregnant, and you were so kind to share a lot of your tips, from business all the way to being a working mom, because I was going into it head on thinking, I don't know, Laura, how do I do all this? How do these moms do it?
And I'm like, there is no magical answer. Nobody knows. Like, but yeah, so that was how we first became friends and have really just kind of, I don't know, which I always, my friends always laugh that anyone that I meet that I like if you're my gynecologist or if you're my stylist or if you're my dentist or like, and I like you, it's like suddenly I just bring you into this world and I'm like, you're my friend now. Welcome.
Yeah. Well, and I think we have that in common. So it's a perfect match.
Yes. Okay. So Jenny, you've got your hands in a lot of things. I want you to walk us through your background and how you've kind of landed where you are, which at this point, your primary role is working as a stylist.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me. It's fun to tell my story. I think like everything in life, it's really not a totally linear story. And so it's been something for me to figure out as I go, and layering in motherhood this last year has been the most beautiful thing, but probably one of the most challenging things as well, to really figure out what my life looks like and what my roles look like. So I was fortunate to grow up in Atlanta, truly about 3 blocks from, I think, where Laura is speaking to me right now. Beautiful neighborhood, loved my time in Atlanta, had a lot of different passions. I've always really, followed my gut, followed my heart. My parents always let me write my own story as a child, and, they still are very close to me, of course, to this day, and they continue to really kind of celebrate the stories with me as I write them and as we go. So went to college actually here in Greenville, where I now live, and played soccer there. which was, again, a huge passion of mine at the time. Have since moved on from that and studied communications and Spanish. I had a double major. Really, quite frankly, I declared a second major in Spanish because I just wanted to study abroad in Madrid. So that did it.
Jealous.
It was a high, yeah, it was wonderful. It was a high price to pay, but well worth it. So always had the dream really of channeling, I would say, more of that communications degree into something journalism and likely fashion related. I had work by the time I graduated. I had some experiences in New York working for Nanette Lepore, the clothing designer. I'd also served a bit of time in Bergdorf Goodman, representing a few different brands on the floor. So that was a really unique experience. I had
So you were
always
like a sales associate.
I was actually, it's a funny story. It was interning for Nanette Lepore in the showroom. And I think a few weeks into my internship, their representative, uh, for whatever reason, was no longer able to, serve in that capacity at Bergdorf. And they said, well, who from this showroom might be able to go and represent us? And it was me. So I think the next morning I woke up and I walked up to, just below Central Park. And I think what was I, probably 20 at the time, if that, maybe 21. And I walked in through the employee entrance to Bergdorf and I swiped my badge. And before I knew it, I was selling in Bergdorf. I'd always been in there shopping and, window shopping too.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I would say, my first taste, if you will, into
Yeah.
helping people style themselves.
Mhm.
And I really liked it. It was challenging. There's really a lot of different clientele in that setting. But it really quickly showed me, okay, I can connect with a lot of people on the fly. And I have the ability, but I also really have the love for that. So that was kind of a thread, I would say, that's continued through my career. So fast forward, came out of college, always wanted to be actually the editor of Vogue. That was my
Ooh.
dream
Yeah.
job. I think from when I was a little girl, I started saying that. And I think by the time I was 21, 22, I realized that Anna Wintour wasn't going anywhere. So Jenny Pancoast was on to new adventures. Um, so moved along from that dream, but rolled into a job in advertising in Atlanta. I had actually decided to not accept a position in New York in fashion, and I went into advertising. So I represented actually a shoe retailer, a big national brand, as an account manager, and learned a lot about advertising and the retail world really, really quickly. Great place to cut my teeth, I would say, and I think it was less than a year later, one of my former mentors actually reached out to me and said, we know you're loving this advertising role, but we just got a new equity partner with this home building company that this individual was a part of. And she said, we just need someone who can come in and get their hands dirty and help us rebrand everything and launch this brand and put all of the assets together and represent the dollars in a way that we all are really happy once it goes to market. And so I said, all right, we're going from fashion to home building. This is not what I saw happening, but let's do it. And it ended up being an 8-year career for me, tremendously rewarding through, the things I learned, the relationships I built in particular. By the time I left, I was in a director role for marketing and sales. So, really just got great experience. And around that time, I was getting married, and it was COVID was approaching. We didn't quite know, and my now husband was living in Greenville at the time, so we had been doing long distance for a while, and we really just got to a point where we said, well, we're definitely going to live together once we get married, so one of us has to move, and we decided to live in Greenville together, and it was a big decision, and it meant that my job was going to probably take some turns, which I wasn't thrilled about, but marriage and life together was way more important, of course.
Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit more, I settled in Greenville, actually joined a brokerage here and was the marketing director for a real estate company. And we basically serviced all of the different developers around what we call the upstate, which is kind of this larger, greater Greenville area. And again, I was able to just leverage a lot of that real estate background, but also channel some more creativity, I would say, into these marketing campaigns and brands. And, what does it look like to be a resident or even a visitor to some of these different communities that we're coming out of from dirt. So did that, and then a little ways into that position, jumped into a consulting job that really, it was kind of another thing. It came to me through a relationship. That's been a common thread through my career as well. And I decided to join this consulting firm and basically consult internationally on different customer experiences throughout the real estate industry. So I was working on projects, domestically, actually not too far from where I live right now, all the way to projects in Spain and Italy. So really, again, cool experience, really, really challenging, but in the best of ways. I love a challenge. I'm not really happy if I don't have something challenging me a little bit. So around that time, things were going really well with that particular position. And this is really a couple of years ago now. We were married. We'd been, wanting to grow our family, and it wasn't coming as easily for us. And so I really had to kind of force myself to take a step back. My career had always really been like my guiding star. And I now, of course, had a husband who was equally as important, and growing our family was too. And so I had to kind of shuffle things around and just say, I'm not sure this career I've been chasing is exactly what I can be doing and what really my soul and my heart need at this time. So I decided to part ways from this career that I'd worked so hard, in growing. And I decided that I was going to truly come full circle on this fashion thing, if you will. And I decided to launch my styling business, which is called Jenny Pancoast Styling. And I launched it really just about 2 years ago now.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh my gosh.
It's
Wow.
still pretty fresh, on paper if you look at a timeline. But that said, to date, I think I probably have been able to partner with probably over 150 different clients, and I'm so grateful for every single one of them. I work with different people, different women, men, all the way to different brands, editorial partners to do styled photo shoots. So many doors have opened up. It's also just been, it's been a very, I would say, interesting journey to getting here, because it really was a culmination of, a lot of hard work and experience, but also just a passion. And I had people kind of looking at me like I was a little crazy for leaving my real estate career and jumping into something so different. But it was the right thing for me. And I look back now, and it was the best decision I could have made. And it's given me the ability to, be more entrepreneurial through just launching that business itself. But I've also had the opportunity recently, which it's still in its early stages, but I'm actually launching a skincare line. So I am launching a product leveraging his technology, and it will be called 24 Skincare. It's a nod to the fact that it has sustained release. So as soon as you add this powder or moisturizer to your skin, we have two different products. It will essentially be working around the clock for up to 24 hours to fight the signs of aging. So this should be launching in really the next couple of months. We can be checked out on social media. Our Instagram specifically is 24 Skincare, and our website is 24skincare.com.
I'm so excited. I know this has been in the works, and I have a lot to say about that. Okay. Also, that was very impressive. I mean, I don't think that I could give such a succinct description of my own personal career history. I would have a lot more ums and likes and side stories.
It's a long one. It's a long
one, but it's so fascinating because everybody has their journey to get where they are. And I'll have like patients or family friends that are in like college or like immediately post college. And it's like, for whatever reason, we have this idea in our head that we need to know what the final destination is career wise. And it's really not fair. Like, it's not fair to even tell high school students to pick a career path, because you have to kind of get out there and try it and then be able to say, okay, I really loved this part of this job or this career, but my strength actually is a little more this. And they can be so similar, but it's hard to know when you're 17, 18. I mean, how people are in their 50s and they're like, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. Yeah. And I think it's so great when we are able to take the risk and make the change. I think about if I ever hear somebody kind of complaining about their job, I always think of something my dad told me, which is you should love or enjoy 90% of your job. Like 10% of every job sucks. Like
Right.
it just does. And like, there's like the administrative shit or like whatever. Every like 10% of every job sucks. And so as long as if you love or enjoy 90% of what you're doing, then like you're in such a good spot. And if you don't, then make a change. Like just make a change. And my husband who works in real estate, when he was an attorney, it was not as fabulous as I think it is in real estate. I mean, no job is perfect, but I would constantly say, well, just do something else. Like there's no sense in living your life if you're not at that 90%. So, but it's hard. It's really hard to leave a job. It's really hard to make a decision, take the risk. And I'm very proud of you for doing all those things. And then when you look back, it somehow makes sense. Like you look back and are able to say, oh, wow, well, that job took me to this job, which took me to this job. And it's, hindsight's always 2020. So what would you say your kind of key characteristic that took you through all of these different jobs? Because, a communications degree, which to be like very transparent. So obviously I have a science education. What do most people do with a communications degree? I imagine that's very, very broad.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's funny, communications. So I mentioned that I had played soccer at Furman. Communications was one of those degrees that it was like, oh, a lot of the athletes, like wink, wink, take communications. And so I had to kind of combat that too and say, no, I really actually like this. And it's, I see value. For me, I always wanted to do something related to writing. And, again, like I'm not sitting here writing books. I'm not an author, not a journalist, but I write so much in my work. And, I have to convey a lot to my clients digitally, and I have to convey a lot as follow-up and as future plans. And that's actually something that to this day, a lot of my clients will say, that's what really sets you apart from a lot of the stylists that we work with. You're super communicative. You're, clear and concise. And we know what you're trying to say, and we know how you're going to help us pretty quickly. A lot of communications majors, though, gosh, it can be all over the board. I think some want to get a degree. I think some want to go into broadcast journalism. Some may want to be a journalist. Some may want to, in this day.
So is there a journalism degree?
Not at my particular university. There would be, Furman's a pretty small liberal arts school, so we didn't have a ton of different majors. So I would say for that reason too, the communications degree can really be a catch-all in a lot of ways. I do think now, and I find this a fascinating thing to continue thinking about and watching, but I do think now there's probably a tremendous emphasis on social media and the things that we were just starting to talk about when I was getting my degree.
Yeah, like Facebook started when I was in college.
Right.
You had to have a college,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting to see how the curriculum has really evolved. And, I don't have a super close relationship at this point because I'm old to anyone in college, but I think it's really interesting, just kind of observe like what are people doing with a degree like that. So, yeah.
And so so the first job was fashion, right? And then real estate.
Yeah.
And really even in the styling business and with the skincare, something that, and we actually talked about this earlier, just the two of us, like there is usually this like red thread, which is a Tish term. We both love Tish. This sort of red thread of like your personality skill sets. And so something that and Tish is a clarity coach who's wonderful.
Yes.
I mean, obsessed with her. We'll include her in the show notes if anyone wants to work with her. But one of the things that Tish always kind of like really leans in on, and something that I've struggled with, and I think you have too, if you're somebody that is this like natural entrepreneurial personality, I'm somebody that if I see a problem, I want to fix it. Even if I'm like, I don't know how to do that, I will figure out how to do that. Like I will fix it. And so it's me trying to just like really hone in on like, well, where should I be spending my time? Like, and one of the things that Tish talks about is like, what are your skills? Like, what are your true skill sets? Like your gift, your magic. What do you actually care about, or as Tisha says, what do you give a shit about?
Yeah.
And then what matters? Like, what matters to you? Like, it's just, it's this fascinating cross section. And it's been very helpful for me to be able to go through and look at, okay, I have all these things that I like want to do. Which ones do I do? And being able to look at your individual unique skill set. And I do think your communication skills are, I mean, even your introduction to yourself, right? Like, you are just somebody that's well-spoken and organized. And I've loved working with you for that reason as well.
Thank you.
All the various things that we've done together. Your emails are always very clear, very concise. Like, you've helped do a closet edit and styling for me, and like your follow-up emails, all of that is key. I wonder, is that one of your, but you're also personable. I mean, you've got a lot of red threads. What would you say your big ones are?
Thank you. Well, I appreciate all of that, first of all. I think, yeah, as you said, it's interesting to have a career that to a lot of people might not make a ton of sense when you're just looking at it on paper. And you definitely have to get past any insecurities or what are the optics of this, and just know that you really did follow a lot of common threads and the red thread. I would say, when I look back at my career, there are two things that really stand out in getting me to where I am today. And the first one is just, a big item, but relationships. I can tell you, each career, I would say each successful thing that's occurred in my career to date has really been a result of relationships and getting to know people on a deeper level and understanding, what makes them tick and what makes me tick, and how can we, put these things together and move forward together. And I think that's something that I apply to every single client relationship too, trying to get to know people on a deeper level. And I always laugh and say, your closet, excuse me, your closet is a way more intimate space than you ever realized until you get a stylist in there. And that's when you start thinking, oh gosh, there's, that shirt, I haven't touched that in 10 years. I should have pulled that out. Or gosh, does everyone's closet have this much dust in it? And the answer is yes. Mine does too. But I find that people really, they want to connect with you, in our daily lives, but especially when you're invited into their home. They want you to really kind of help them get under the hood and get things out and, in with the new as well. And I really strive to build deep relationships. The other piece, the other thread is that I am a very analytical person, but I'm also pretty creative too. And I think that is a unique combination. And that's something that I never really appreciated about myself, because I don't think I really realized it until I'd had the opportunity, till I was 35 years old, to really apply those things and figure out what that could mean through my life and through my career. So those are two other, I would say, just characteristics, the creativity and the being so analytical, that have allowed me, I think, to get into a more creative service line, but still leverage a lot of the analytical things. And, I say that in kind of a broad way, but I try to use technology in a way that can benefit my clients and benefit me. I use, I have a pretty robust project management system, for example, and that probably sounds kind of goofy for a stylist, but to me, that's how I can stay organized and communicating well with people. And, remembering that the last time I saw Susie, it was her child's 7th birthday, and I can ask how the kids are today and things like that. That's what I think we really crave in a lot of our interactions.
We do. And so one of my questions, well, first of all, I asked that question because I think particularly as women, we tend to downplay our own strengths. Like, it's easy to be like, no, like, I don't know. Or, like, we forget to really lean in to, I'm good at this. Like, I have these skills. And I think if no one asks you that question, particularly as like an adult, you're able to just be like, I don't know, I'm not different than anybody else, or I'm not better than anybody else. And we all have these like very unique skill sets. And I think sometimes if we don't step back and look at that and acknowledge that and celebrate that, then it's easy to not really recognize the magic that you do and that it's important and it's so unique and specific. Yeah. You also are, so like I think about when you asked me to lunch, and I remember calling my friend just like on the way there, and she was like, who are you going to lunch with? And like, why did they invite you to lunch? And And there was no, and I mean, I even remember kind of showing up and wondering, like, is she going to ask for something? Or,
Yeah.
and I was like, no, we were just, and so do you have very specific ways that you try to foster your relationships, your community? Because some people nail it and some people try and don't nail it. And I feel like you've nailed it. I mean, any
Thank
person that
you.
your name comes up to, they're like, oh my gosh, I love Jenny,
Thank you.
which we all want to hear, right? And maybe they know we're friends and they're not going to tell me that they don't
Right.
like
Yeah.
you. But everyone's like, oh my gosh, I love Jenny. She's so great. And you've got Atlanta and Greenville. I mean, and you go to, what are the other
I
cities
go to Augusta quite
Augusta.
often.
Yes.
Love Augusta, and yeah, a few other cities around the southeast, but those are kind of my core three for clients.
Which all of that is hard to juggle. Like and
Mhm.
you've got a new baby
Yeah.
and you're juggling all of these things, but you do such a great job with your relationships. Is there something specific that you try to focus on or do to really like foster those relationships and that
Mhm.
kind of community feel?
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I do feel like it's always top of mind for me. I I don't really even know what the answer is. I think the biggest point that I would try to make is just really being giving of your time to others, but also being able to recognize that anytime you're giving your time to them, they're also giving their time to you. And so make the most of it and, make it efficient, but make it really genuine. I really try to walk away from any interaction with at least like one or two takeaways about that person that allows me to feel like I've gotten to know them better.
Mhm.
And I think we all really like to share. Not everyone, but I think deep down most people do like to share. And I really try to just be a good listener. And I
Yeah.
try to use today's technologies to benefit relationships rather than hinder them. I think it's easy with social media, for example, to see, oh, Laura went to the Bahamas last week. Like, I bet she had a great time. Maybe
Mhm.
I send you a message and just say your trip looked awesome. Like, what was the best thing you
Mhm.
did? And you don't have to respond to me, but if you want to, that's a really easy way to connect. And text messages and emails these days can be a little bit overwhelming because they do build up very quickly. And it's not to say other types of messages don't, but I just really try to use the platforms that I think people are using and enjoying to communicate with them.
Mhm.
I also have one other thing I do, and every single week, usually on a Thursday, I reach out to one friend that I haven't talked to in a while, and I just send them a
Mhm.
text, and I just say, I've got this great friend up in New York who I texted last week. I was like, hey, I've been thinking about you. I hope everything's well. I always say, I always communicate in a way where it doesn't really like warrant a response. So if
Yeah.
they read it and they heart it, all good. They
Yeah.
know that they're on someone's mind.
Mhm.
But if they want to respond, great. It's Thursday, and surely in the next 3 or 4 days we can have a slight, deeper conversation. So that's one thing I really like to try to do.
I also love that you're not asking anything of them. I think in particular as like a working mom, I
Mhm.
too, and like when I'm in clinic, I really can't be responding to messages,
Right.
email. I mean, if my nanny calls or the school calls, I try to answer, and even those I miss. But I will sometimes get at the end of my day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all these emails, all these text messages, and they're all requests,
Mhm.
right? They're like, a lot of them are like, my child has a rash, or I can't get an appointment. Some of them are like family group text messages about things, or like, can you pick up carpool? Or Ben texted me today and was like, oh, I just found out we have a 3-hour event tonight. Like, are you going to murder me? And so they're all things that typically are like asking something of me. And there
Mhm.
is something just absolutely delightful about just getting a message from a friend that's just like,
Yeah.
love you, hope you're doing well, or like, looks like you had fun. And you're not, no one is asking anything of you. I
Right.
talk about this all the time, that I think that one of the core issues of being a working mom, and probably many other people, but in my world, it's a working mom, that you're so rarely like taken care of.
Yeah.
It's just you're getting constant requests. And so it's just
Mhm.
so nice to be like, I'm just thinking about you and I just wanted to let you know, and like no action needed,
Right.
It's
Right.
like,
Well, and it's funny because I mean, I could not agree more with everything you just said. When I get a text message that's like, "Hey, just wanted to say hi, like happy Friday." I'm
yeah.
like, Oh, thank
To
you.
me? Yeah, yeah.
That was really refreshing to use your
Mhm.
word. So
Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing, and communication can be fun. We're just, we're
yeah,
bombarded by
we
so
are.
much of it all the
We
time.
are bombarded. I also think you're right. So I obviously use social media, but if I get a message on Instagram that's just sort of like a fun, or like they've liked it, or they've been like, oh my gosh, that looks so great. I really enjoy those interactions. Like there's something about
Right.
mentally when I open Instagram, I'm like, this is a place I go when I need to kind of like check out, or I want to
Yes.
break, or I want to like look at pretty pictures, or,
Mhm.
shop, whatever.
Right.
Where when I open my email, I'm already like in this space of like, okay, this is these are administrative messages that I'm gonna have to respond to. So I think it's like I would be interested in the psychology of messaging when we
Mhm.
want this like positive messaging via social media versus a text or an email.
Yeah, yeah. I think it would be really interesting, to know if that is like a common feeling from a lot of
Mhm.
people. I think it's easy to, my text messages 10 years ago were, if I was just talking to my friends about what we were
Yeah,
going to do for fun and like maybe,
right.
toss in a work thing here or there. But now it's like you said, what's for dinner, carpool, or can you
Mhm.
take the boys to the sporting event? And,
Yeah,
but can you also be, at clinic or something? So
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's a lot, and I think it does. Our emails and our text messages, our inboxes, they become this place where you might be hit with, one of 10 different categories. Whereas our social media, at least for the time being,
mhm,
even if it is a business one, it typically is a
yeah.
fun, relaxed conversation,
And if I get a serious message on Instagram, I'm like, oh, this is going to need to go in email. Like,
Yeah,
can you send me your email? Like, that's my immediate
yes,
response. Like, I'm
me
like,
too.
this cannot be handled. Like, the Instagram is not the place, which I
No.
don't know why. Like, it's the same. I should be able to, but there's some like mental block where I'm like, this is an email. It's like, we joke about
Yes.
like booking, like, your airline tickets is like, that's like a computer job, not a
Yes.
phone. That's a computer job.
Right,
Like, just
totally.
make
Yes,
fun.
I'm the same way. I'm taking things to email very quickly if, if we're trying to schedule something, you name it.
Yeah, like this is an email thing.
Yeah.
So on that note, I love fashion too. I've not had your journey with fashion. I feel like it's something I kind of discovered in adulthood. And one of the big things for me with fashion is I really didn't think that I was that like deserving, is kind of the way, as I've like spent some therapy and time like digging into this a little bit. I was somebody that, I grew up in the Midwest and I wore jeans and t-shirts, which I love and is still like the core staple of my wardrobe.
Mhm.
But I remember I would like, yeah, and I definitely, we would go like back to school shopping every year and do all that. But
Yeah.
I remember seeing things and thinking like, well, that's like too much money for me to spend on myself, or like where I have nowhere that I would wear that, or, kind of didn't think that that was like something that I was like worthy of. Not that I didn't have that psychological understanding at the time, but, and
Right.
then as I've gotten older, and the first time I ever hired a stylist, which was Susan, who's one of my good friends,
Yeah.
it was postpartum. And it was like, just really changed how I felt about myself.
Mhm.
And I realized that it was very fun for me.
Mhm.
So it's back to like when I opened Instagram and I'm like, ooh, I want to shop. It is fun for me. And I remember like still grappling with that and being on a girls trip and one of my good friends saying like, well, this is like your hobby. Like you like online shopping and looking at things and thinking through and like trying them on and being like, how would I style this? Like playing
Mhm.
with it. And then, even if you decide like this actually doesn't fit in my wardrobe and like returning it, I view it as something that's like fun and I
Mhm.
enjoy it. I think that for you as a stylist, it can be a big pain point for a lot of people. Like
Oh.
getting dressed is like stressful and a pain point, and like because there's so much involved with that, like how we feel about our bodies, how we feel about our wardrobe, how we feel about like what we want our bodies to be and what we want our wardrobe to be.
Yep.
Um, that's just got to be kind of a tough, because there's the clothes and then there's the emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I learned early on in my career that, and I should say in my styling career, that being a stylist is also a little bit like being a therapist sometimes.
Yeah.
And I say that from a very loving place because it
Mhm.
means that people are feeling like they can open up to you that much.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women, and I think this goes back to what you had said earlier about sometimes when you're a mom and a working mom, like you and taking care of yourself really does fall pretty far down the priority list.
Yes.
And a lot of times it does take a big life change, or it will take, hitting a different decade of your life to really think, okay, now's a good time for me to actually, you know, give myself a little bit of grace and, maybe spend a few more dollars or just shop my own closet and figure out what is working for me and what is it time to let go of. And I think it is very cathartic for a lot of my clients who do a closet edit, for example, and they get rid of things that they flat out don't want to see anymore. I mean, I can
Yeah.
relate to this one, but I work with a lot of women who are in their postpartum days and years, and they're like, that dress over there will forever be the pregnancy dress, and I
Yeah.
don't want to see
Yeah.
it anymore. And
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I just got rid of a few dresses the other day that served me very well during a time in my life where I had a big basketball tummy, and actually, I shouldn't say basketball. I had a big body. But
I
you
never had a basketball.
yeah, I was not. That was the wrong term for me. I was not the basketball mom either.
Yeah.
But it's, we associate a lot of life's moments with our clothing as well.
Yeah.
And in the last couple of years too, I've seen a lot of women, and really men too, who have said, "This is my corporate section in my closet. I don't
Mhm.
need it anymore. I don't go into the office anymore,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I." Don't go to, I don't do any work anymore. I'm retired and I'm grateful and I want to celebrate that. So
Mhm.
these life changes really do push people, I think, to reevaluate a lot of things going on around them. And to a lot of people too, styling can seem like it's a really, surface thing. And I think it can be viewed as that for sure. We're talking about a lot of tangible items, but it also redefines how people view themselves. And that
Mhm.
is an incredible thing to get to be a part of that process. And, I'm not going in and meeting a new client and saying, this is who you're going to be, or like, this is what
Mhm.
you're going to look like. I'm hearing them tell me, these are the things I love. These are the things I care about, to go back to some of your great thought starters and questions. And you're just guiding them, to finding something that's already inside. And that's so empowering for an individual and a client, and for someone like, little me that got to come in and be a part of that process.
So I have lots of thoughts on this, but I keep talking about the fashion psychologist. There's the Diana podcast. She had a
Yeah.
fashion psychologist on. It was wonderful. We'll include it in the show notes. It was a great episode. But one of the things that you just talked about was that you can redefine yourself.
Hmm.
And we've talked about this a lot from a career perspective, but I
Right, right.
also think it's such a reminder from a fashion perspective. Like I remember even when I started kind of getting dressed instead of wearing like exercise clothes. I remember like my husband would be like, "Oh, where are you going today?" Because I just had on like normal clothes, right?
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. Like it's like you feel uncomfortable if you go from like I wear yoga pants every day to like you're putting on like a dress. But
Hmm.
once you redefine that, like the people in your life that every time you see them, like I don't wear workout clothes very often other than to exercise. And so
Yeah.
no one is like, "Oh my gosh, you're dressed up." But there was that transition, and
Right.
which is some of it is just like the reminder that we're allowed to do that and we're allowed to own that, and like we are multifaceted people and there are different times in our lives where certain things serve us better than others, which sort of is a segue into I want to talk about your transition into 24 because I
Mhm.
think that's a really good example of so you actually came to me. Has it been a year? It's been a while.
I think it's
And
been probably a full year. Yeah.
it's probably been a year. And you kind of said, listen, here is where I am. And this is the technology and this is the product. And I really love it. And I really believe in it. And, here's the data, here's the science. I even met with your father-in-law to kind of talk with him. And you really came to me and said, well, do you believe in it? Like, I want your opinion as a friend and as a dermatology provider, but also I remember you feeling a little almost like, well, who am I
Hmm.
to start a skincare brand? And it's like, well, who are you not to? Like, you
Yeah.
have the technology that we could all benefit from, and it's sitting right there. And like, yes, we want it. Like, it's not like you have to do one thing we don't have to follow some predetermined path. Like we get to decide and we get to redefine whether that's how we're dressing or our careers or who we want to be. I think about my sweet cousin when she was looking at colleges. My mom went on one of the college visits with her, and my mom was like, well, where are you thinking? She goes, I don't know who I want to be yet. And
Oh,
it's like, she's totally right. Like, I don't know who I want to be yet, right? Like
right,
you get to decide that, and you could decide tomorrow, like I'm now the owner of a skincare company, and like you are, but
right.
it is, you have to pep talk yourself a little bit. And I'm excited, and I absolutely encouraged you and was like, I think it's a great product, and I'm super excited for it to launch, and excited to go on that journey with you. I think it's great, which we'll talk about the science of that when it actually launches. But and you have stepped into that role so beautifully, and all of your skill sets actually make sense. Your marketing, your advertising, your communication, your relationships, all of it fits perfectly.
Yeah, I absolutely love, Laura, what you're saying about redefining. I think that actually is kind of bubbling up as a theme to this conversation. You know, you and I both have redefined what our careers look like in a lot of ways as we've grown families and we've really grown into, you know, the family members and the moms and the people that we want to be in our communities. And I really did. I had to do a lot of soul searching, not to sound cliche, but just to figure out, you know, how much does it matter that my career journey into styling and now skincare is going to confuse a few people? And I really came to figure out, you know, I trust so deeply what I am doing right now and where I'm headed with that. And I think it's going to be really, really clear to a lot of people as soon as I can tell that story fully. But, you know, until then, I think you have to find a lot of confidence in yourself, and you have to realize that you are the one writing that story, and you're also going to be the one telling that story, and you're going to be the main voice, you know, that's kind of the voice that's heard over any sort of other discussions or, you know, things going on. And I also find that we think a whole lot more about ourselves and our elevator pitch, if you will, than anyone else in the world possibly does. So I think it's good to keep that perspective as well. But, you know, all that said, I think that you have a history of this as well. When you mentioned earlier, when you see a problem, you want to solve it. When you see an opportunity to bring something great to the community or an industry, you want to do it. And I think fortunately you and I both are, you know, we're realistic, but we're also a little bit more fearless maybe than your average person, which, you know, has challenges, but has a lot of positives as well. And that's really what compelled me to say to my father-in-law, whose company has licensed this phenomenal technology. You know, I just said, this needs to be in the skincare industry. You are talking about characteristics of technology that have never been truly seen before. You know, we're talking about an active that can be a sustained release over the skin for 12 to 24 hours. A lot of the products we're putting on our skin, and I am so preaching to the choir on this, but they're not working for a very long time. And a lot of us are not educated on that just as general consumers. And that's what I just said to Scott, you know, whether you're someone like me who kind of is a little afraid of Botox and some of the injectables, or you're someone that's doing it on a frequent basis, like we need at-home treatments that we can feel good about, that we feel are effective, and it can layer into a really simple routine, or it can layer into one that's perhaps a little bit more hands-on and physician driven. So, you know, enter 24 skincare, and we're thrilled to bring something.
And there's so many wonderful benefits to 24 skincare, and we are going to, like, when we're allowed, we're going to really talk about that.
Yes.
I do want, so you're still going to be styling.
Correct.
You're still styling.
Yes.
And so you're right. Some people may feel a little confused. And I remember people being confused when I launched Shop Derm and the Consult Club and all the things. And they're like, well, I don't understand. Like, how are these all related? And what does that look like? How are you feeling about balancing all of that? I think that that's something as a mom, we tend to get, I can't tell you how many people in my life right now have they either want to go out on their own or they want to start consulting, or they're sort of like not sure that their corporate job is the right job, which you've already taken that jump. But now you are like, hey, I've got a lot of balls in the air here, right? So I'm trying to style. I really want to maintain that. You're great at it. You have a lot of brands you work with, wonderful clients and customers that I'm sure are like, please don't stop. Like, I need you. And then you've now taken on this new role, which a lot of it comes natural to you, right? Marketing, advertising, relationship building, communications, but you're still learning something new, which has been one of your red threads, is that you like taking on a challenge. This is a challenge. It makes sense. You're now very good at styling. You've been doing it a couple years. It's probably not too difficult for you to do that job, which I understand. My day job is also at this point pretty easy for me in a wonderful way. So how are you going to try to like balance and maintain all of that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. It's something that I feel like I work through on a daily basis. I laugh too with my husband a lot of times and say, I left the corporate world, started my own business to have a little bit more flexibility and creativity. And, fast forward, I am definitely working more hours than I have ever worked, but I'm doing two things in particular, in addition to being a mother and a wife, that I genuinely love. And I do not mind, that I'm putting my son down at 7 p.m. and I'm going to be up for a few hours going through the packaging design for the skincare line. And, it does come naturally to me because it's a space, it's a new industry, but it's a space overall that I've really played a lot in. And so it is doable, I would say, through the skill set that I have, through the passion. And I really, in my styling business in particular, I talk a lot about the personal brand. And I think that is something I think a lot about from my own perspective, but I also think about how do you help others? How do you help clients, tell about their personal brand and establish it and accentuate it? And I think that all of these things, whether it's clothing or skincare or wellness, it all factors into how we take care of ourselves, on a few different levels. And it factors into to how we really view ourselves and think of ourselves and then present ourselves to others. So I like to really, focus, I would say, on the common thread of pulling, all of these great experiences I've had down the line with me. And I've got this very vibrant, fortunately, vibrant styling business. And here I am layering in, another entrepreneurial role that is also bringing something, to women and men that they really haven't had access to before. And that's something with my styling business too. I try to make styling attainable for a lot of different people. And I want to make skincare really attainable for a lot of different people too, whatever that may look like.
Yeah. And I get that. Like, my husband will sometimes say, like, you've just worked nonstop for like 2 weeks. Like, you need a break. And I'm like, have I been? Like, because I enjoy what I'm doing, and back some of that is Tish kind of helping push me in the direction of like, what do you enjoy doing? And one of the things I enjoy doing is like having real conversations about being an entrepreneur and a mom and a working mom, and having real relationships and real friendships and authentic conversations. And those are things that to me, that's not work, right? Like, that's enjoyable to me. Those are things that I was already kind of doing. And the other thing that I think about when I am, trying to balance all of the things on my plate is I am a busybody. And so if I were not spending my time hosting console club events or, writing Substacks or creating podcast episodes with people that I love and believe in, then I would be doing something else. I would be like, I don't even know what. I'd be like reorganizing the closets, or I'd be, I'm already running the neighborhood stuff. I would be doing something. And in my mind, I'm like, one of the things that I love doing, and I think you do too, is I like helping other people. Like, if you're like, hey, I need a recommendation for this or for that, I want to help you. I want to give you the best recommendation. I want the person that I'm referring you to that I believe and I think is wonderful, I want to see them succeed. And then the person that I'm sending the recommendation to, I want them to have the best. And I love helping people be a better version of themselves, like truly. And I want that to be my legacy. Like, and so if I can really channel that into something that is I'm going to be remembered by, and, my kids will look and say, wow, my mom, she did the thing, and she's making sure that she is making other people's lives better, instead of just like spinning my wheels. Like, I don't know, but it is hard when you're at the beginning stages of something new, because it's easy to question, why am I doing this? And like, what's the point of this? And should I be spending my time instead, like, building magnet tiles with my kids, or
Right.
going on a long walk, or, I don't know. And none of us really know what we're doing. But I think one of the things that I always say is like working with people that I believe in and I care about and I think are good people, doing the right thing. So being just very thoughtful and conscientious of like, is this the right thing? And is this going to benefit people? Like, is this
Yeah,
something that is going to benefit people? And if I just kind of keep making those choices, good things will happen. And, like, and that's what I tell
absolutely.
myself. Like every time I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm like, this is just the right thing to do. This is going to help people. These are good people. These are people I believe in. Like, coming to Greenville with you, and
Yes.
like, I'm excited. I enjoy that. I love that. I love being able to bring that to a space, and you're doing the same thing. And even if sometimes you're like, does this like really all relate?
Right.
It does relate. And
Right.
that's the space that you're in right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I am a busybody at heart too. If I'm not working, I'm doing the fourth load of laundry that day.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah. So why not, why not build things with your own hands that you can share with others and, really
And believe in, like,
believe
really
in?
believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's big. So I do wanna ask, I always like to ask everybody, like, a tidbit for us to kinda walk away with.
Mhm.
I think that my question would be, about styling.
Yeah, let's do it.
So kind of thinking about, what's top of mind for me is the transition of seasons,
Mhm.
and it's very overwhelming because I see all these things. I want to buy all these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, like silver jewelry is making a comeback. I want every new Strog bag that's posted. I want
Yes.
all the flowy dresses. I want a new skirt. And I do feel that I try to be a very intentional shopper.
Mhm.
But thinking about transitioning seasons, like, how do you encourage people to like look at their own wardrobe, shop their own wardrobe, and like, how do you find the holes? Like, every time I
Yeah.
have a stylist, they're like, we're going to find the holes in your closet. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But like, how do I find the holes in
Yeah.
my closet?
Right, right. Those are really great questions. I love talking about transitioning seasons because the beautiful thing about transitioning seasons is that we really have everything we need in our closets in general. We just have to figure out how to put them together and make it make sense. I work with people across the country, but most of my clients, I would say, are centralized to the general Southeast region. So I tell all of those clients really truly lean into the weather because we don't know if it's going to be 30 degrees in the morning, yet 75 degrees in the afternoon. We can have it all. I think specifically speaking about going winter to spring, I think layering is your best friend. I also tell clients pull out the pieces in your closet that have two characteristics. One being that they lean into winter and that they might be long sleeve or it might be a pant or a longer skirt or dress, but then find the piece that has that and is also something more spring-like, whereas it might have a springy print or it might have a springy color. And once you can find those pieces, you kind of start seeing them as your transitional pieces. So you might
Mhm.
have, for example, let's call it a sweater dress, but it has short sleeves. That's perfect for
Mhm.
this time of year. You
Mhm.
might have a long sleeve blouse that you want to wear, and it's long sleeve and it's a little bit thick, but it has a light pink print, and maybe some
My pink
flowers on it.
sweater.
Like you,
My
exactly.
pink sweater. Okay.
Exactly. So that's how I say, find something that kind of marries up the seasons
Yeah.
that you're leaving and the season you're entering and pull those out. And then throw a sweater over your shoulders if you need to. That can just be an accessory. It doesn't, sometimes I'll put a sweater over my shoulders that has no business layering over a puffy sleeve blouse. Nobody else is thinking about that, but it at least is
Or
good.
you can like put it on your lap if you're cold, like that.
Exactly.
I feel like that was big for me, was I would put a jacket and be like, well, it's not going to fit, or like a scarf or a sweater. And then I realized, like, the styling is huge. Like, if
Mhm.
you can layer and actually create your own look or your own style with something,
Yep.
that feels more genuine or authentic. And then also that is still useful in
Yeah.
some capacity, like from
Right,
like a
right,
heat
right.
perspective, because same, like in Atlanta, it's like the weather is wild
It's
each day.
wild. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
how do you feel about fabric? So I am like a winter white person, so I wear white cream year round. I mean, I try to pick not like the crisp white to wear in December.
yes.
But what about linen? Are there rules around linen?
That's a great question because I am asked that a lot. I don't really follow a whole lot of rules, linen being one of them. I was styling a client, for example, several months ago who had a baby shower coming up, and
Mhm.
I sent her a couple of different options, one of which was linen, and it was a long sleeve linen dress. So, applying my rule again, it
Yeah,
had
yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah. So
one
the
that she
fabric
would
is the spring, the long sleeve is the okay.
exactly. And that was a little bit that made her uncomfortable, which I understood, and I never
Yeah.
force anyone in a direction that makes them uncomfortable. But that said, it gave me the opportunity to really kind of think through, the linen rules, if you
Mhm.
will. And I really would say lean into the weather and the temperatures. And
Yeah.
you probably don't want to wear linen to your Christmas Eve church service, but other than that, I think there's a lot of flexibility with it. And I would throw white in there as well.
Mhm.
Today I have on my off-white jeans that I love, and I love anything off-white in particular
Mhm.
because I think it is such a good transitional color. It
Yeah.
also lives really well if you have children and you're just trying to live life and not get your stark white pants dirty. But
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
little bit more gentle too as you're layering different colors and different palettes in.
Yeah. I wear my off-white like year
The
round.
best, yeah.
I also that's like a good so I the another thing I do is I will save
Mhm.
pieces. So like I did get this year a new long sleeve linen dress from Rebecca. It's
Mhm.
like super cool. I love it. It's got this like cool back, but it's navy and like totally my style. And I really probably could have worn it this week. Like the weather is right. I could
Yeah,
wear it with like a sneaker, even if I wanted it to make it feel more like, fall or winter esque. But I'm like, oh, I want to save it. Like I want to
yeah.
save it. And it's like, but then what happens in Atlanta is then it's 100 degrees and all of these like cool, like I got a pair of linen pants. Like I'm like all these things that like realistically when it's July,
Right.
I cannot wear them. And so this is a good reminder for me to
Yeah.
be like, realistically, you're going to wear your linen in Atlanta from March to like May, and then
Right.
it's going to be too hot. And so if you have long sleeve linen, this is it. Like
Yeah.
this is it.
Yeah,
you know?
I completely agree. And you can think of it too, like you're putting on your linen dress and it's early March. Does it feel funny? Maybe, but throw on a sweater over your shoulders or add a darker belt and maybe a
Yeah.
darker colored shoe or a darker purse. And that's going to instantly, take the eye. It's going to pull down that color a little bit, not in a bad way, but in a way where it kind of like anchors it
Yeah.
into the season a little bit more. So I always say it's all about the accessories. And
Yeah.
I really try to help my clients shop a little bit high and low. I think it's a
Mhm.
really good place to land when you have, nice things in your closet that makes sense from a cost per wear perspective. But then there's nothing wrong with pulling in, a Target jean or something like that. If it fits you
Yeah.
well, do it. It's
Yeah.
all about that combination to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is very helpful. So, I would like to transition a little bit more into skincare.
Mhm.
So, I always like to ask folks, like, I want to hear sort of your relationship with skincare, your relationship with your own skin. Are you someone that like had acne growing up? I do know that you're someone that really tends to lend a little more simple or clean, which we've
Yes.
talked about that a little bit. But
Yes.
tell us about your relationship with skin.
Yeah, so I would say I have always prioritized my skincare. That was something that my mom in particular ingrained in me early on. I had very fair skin as a child. I still do have very fair skin. But to a point, I remember in middle school, I was called Casper, and it hit hard. You don't forget that.
Oh gosh.
But that said, I now embrace the very fair skin. I have to be
Mhm,
very conscientious of my SPF, which I know you'll be
mhm,
happy to hear. I am
mhm.
religious about that. But all in all, I do like a simple skincare routine. And I think for me, it's because there are a lot of things happening in my day, and I want to kind of do what I believe are the most important things for my skin, and
Mhm.
then throw on a little bit of makeup and move along from there. So my routine is pretty, I say it's basic, but I use a number of products as well. So I don't know if that's really accurate.
I hear that sometimes. People are like, I have a very simple routine, and then they bring
Yeah.
in the bag with like 45 products, and I'm like, tell me how simple this
Yeah.
is.
I
And they're
think
like, what else do I need to add? I'm like, no, we need to take stuff away.
right. I think that might be me a little bit, but I use a pretty basic daily cleanser, and then on top of that, I love, the line M61, I think is what it's called. Do you
Oh,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Is that what it's called? They have this really great vitamin C scrub. So I use that a
Interesting.
couple of times a week. I think it just
Okay.
helps get, any roughness away. And then I always use, well, currently I'm using right when I get out of the shower or wash my face, a very early 24
Mhm.
sample product, which so that's
Me too.
okay, great, thank you. So you're likely like me using our powder, which is a really it's the only anti-aging powder out there. So people
And it
sometimes
feels so nice.
it
Like it
feels
is
great.
very silky.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, it really does feel great. And I
Thank
do like, so the moisturizer is nice too, but I do like the powder a little bit more.
Yeah, and the powder is good. I mean, I say this specifically for from 24, but also, if you think of a lot of other powders, you're really used to makeup.
Yeah.
But it gives you good coverage if you're actually trying to tone down any redness in particular. And I have so much redness in my skin. So having kind of that, light powder over my skin is my first step, or my step zero, as we call it, actually,
Yeah.
is really helpful. It tones down the redness, and then I apply a face oil right on top of that, which
Mhm.
is a tiny business out of LA that makes
Oh,
this
what is
face
it?
oil. It's called Lore, Lore.
Okay, I'll have to
And I
look that
might
up.
be saying that wrong, but they have this amazing, I think they call it a triple complex oil, something like that.
Okay.
This feels phenomenal because I tend to have pretty dry skin too. So that would be my next step. And then on top of that, I usually will layer on another just like light moisturizer, to kind of get a little bit more moisturizer in there.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I have an under eye cream as well that I love. So this isn't that simple, but it's also not
It's not
crazy.
terrible. That's not bad.
So that's it. And oh, and I left out that my second moisturizer has SPF in it. So
Okay, there
that's
we
what
go.
we're getting.
There we go. So
Yeah.
we're doing a sunscreen. Which one do you use?
I don't even know which one it is. I have
Oh,
tried
okay.
so many.
Do you like a lightweight
I do
sunscreen?
tend to like a lightweight. That's my thing. That's why I've tried so many, because I
Mhm.
don't like for my SPF moisturizer to be too thick when it goes on. And I also don't love the scent of a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm very picky about that.
So that is a huge issue for people. And
Yeah.
I get asked in the office, because I ask every single patient, especially if I'm doing a skin cancer screening, like, are we wearing a sunscreen every day? And I always kind of harp on the best sunscreen is the one that you're actually going to put on,
Yeah.
because people will say, well, what's your favorite? What's the best? And it's like, well, it's so personal. And so, yeah, maybe the best one that I'm going to pick is going to be like really thick, and you're not going to put it on. And so
Right.
it's stupid to even buy it. Like, I'd rather you put on something super lightweight and clear.
Mhm.
I also am very particular about scent. We've talked a lot about this as we've talked about 24. I tend to prefer things that are fragrance free. I see a lot of allergens, a lot of eczema patients. And so it's just like a part of how I view things. I also sort of think that if I'm using a product because I want to experience the scent,
Mhm.
then I'm really probably not as focused on like the efficacy of the active ingredients.
Yeah.
So I always ask people like, what are your top questions? And I'm going to kind of talk about sunscreen for yours. So
Yeah.
so generally speaking, the sunscreens that are going to be lighter weight and feel a little bit more cosmetic are
Mhm.
going to be chemical sunscreens.
Okay.
So a chemical sunscreen, again, if that's what you're willing to use, I want you to use it. I'd
Mhm.
rather you use a 30 SPF chemical sunscreen than purchase a mineral one that sits on your counter.
Yeah.
The clear mineral sunscreens are a lot harder to nail. So a mineral sunscreen by nature is going to be thick.
Okay.
It's going to be thick and white. And so typically, if you're looking for a clear one, there's some great technology now, right? It's 2025. We've had a lot of progress on this,
Right.
but typically they are going to add some chemicals. That's going to help make it a little bit more clear, a little bit more lightweight.
Okay.
Other things you can do, so like Revision has a clear mineral SPF.
Okay.
It's their sort of version of the nanotechnology. But if you really have your skin nice and moisturized before you put it on, and you really like almost like warm it up,
Uh-huh.
it's going to go in a little bit more smooth and a little bit more clear.
Okay.
So that will apply like in general. So if you're going to the beach and you're like, I'm going to put on a thick mineral sunscreen, which I make my
Yeah.
whole family wear. If you want it to sort of like soak in a little bit more, you really kind of have to like work it.
Okay.
And so you want to warm it up. You want to make sure skin's nice and moisturized. You maybe need to like rub it in a little bit longer.
Okay.
But that's typically why I recommend a tinted one.
Okay.
Because then you're not needing to rub it in as much because it's going to go on a little bit prettier because it's tinted. Now, finding the right tint for people can be hard. So some of the ones I love La Roche-Posay. They have a tinted mineral. I love Tower 28 because you can get different colors. You can color match at Sephora. So my favorite clear one right now is by Pavés. So it's super clear and lightweight. But there are so many great options. Supergroup actually has some pretty good clear sunscreens. Most of them do have some chemicals in it, but it's a delicate balance. It really is. And I think with sunscreens, you have to try a bunch before you find the one that you like. And then the other thing I tell people is the sunscreen that I use when I'm going to work is, for me personally, going to be different than what I'm going to use if I'm going to go on a run or I'm going to the gym or I'm going to be spending the day at like the baseball fields. I think that confuses people. And so what I say is you need to pick one that is, you know, for 90% of people, that's clear, it's lightweight, it's in your moisturizer, you put it on every single day and you don't think about it. But it's hard. Finding the right sunscreen is very, very hard because we all have different needs and different wants.
It's true. And it can feel like yet another thing that you're, you know, putting on your skin. And if you're thinking a lot about like not having too much on your face, I feel like it can get, you know, you can think a little too hard about it, even though you know it's the right thing for your skin.
Yeah, you can. And you have to make it automatic. That's what I tell people. Like, you really have to make it automatic. If you're trying to decide, like, do I need sunscreen today? Then we're kind of in a bad spot because you just put it on every day. That's going to be the number one anti-aging product in the world is putting on your sunscreen. And then, you know, nobody wants a skin cancer, right? We all know this, but for some people, it's hard to even imagine that. Like they're young or they're like, no, I'm not going to get a skin cancer, or no one in my family's had skin cancer, or whatever we tell ourselves to believe that we're not going to get skin cancer. But you don't want skin cancer. And you also are coming in and you're spending time and money on cosmetic procedures or toxins or filler or lasers. And if you're not putting on sunscreen every day, it's all a waste, which I'm always shocked by. I'll be, you know, patients are coming in and they want to spend all this money on a laser, and I'm going through their routine and they're like, oh yeah, I don't wear sunscreen.
Yeah.
What? like, well, let's start there. You know, it's
No, I love that you said though that sunscreen is the number one anti-aging product, because no one has ever said that to me, but that makes so much sense, and that makes me want to go put more sunscreen on right now.
I know, you're like, I need to like reapplicate.
Yeah.
What would you say your other kind of like burning or skincare question would be?
Okay, so I touched on this earlier. I still have a little bit of a fear of Botox and injectables and things like that. And I look at a lot of my friends who do things like that, and I'm like, God, they look so good. But what would you say for someone like me that's teetering on the edge still of, you know, trying it or not? What are things that I can be doing? And you may say sunscreen, but what are things that I like? Is there, you know, I hear a lot about vitamin C. Is that going to do anything from an anti-aging standpoint? Can you enlighten me on what I might try?
So I think the biggest thing to think about here is Botox or any toxin, right? They're all, you know, Pepsi, Coke. Although we're Coke people in Atlanta. But anyway, so Botox, Dysport, Jeuveau, you know, there are different brands. That does one thing and only one thing. It is going to prevent you from developing expression lines.
Okay.
That's it. It's not going to do anything for your pigment. It's not going to do anything for redness. It's not necessarily going to help with texture. Do we sometimes see that maybe we have some improvement in like pore size where we do Botox or toxin? Yes.
Okay.
But remembering that, and this is something we talk about Consult Club in depth, is looking at your own skin, and instead of doing what like our friends are doing, what are your specific skincare problems? Like, what is your top issue? And so if you look in the mirror and you do not have a specific line when you are not expressing, so not when you're raising your brows, but when you are looking in the mirror and you are not raising your brows, you're not smiling, you're not squinting, do you have lines at rest?
Mm-hmm.
If you have lines at rest, then yes, you could benefit from something like Botox.
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody need to be doing Botox? Absolutely not. I actually think some of my patients age really beautifully with, we should have lines it's
Right.
normal, right? It's normal.
Right.
And so if you are somebody that texturally you actually don't have too many lines,
Mm-hmm.
it can look really nice and natural to have some little fine lines around your eyes or some nice natural lines on your forehead. It also depends on like, what's your aesthetic? What are you looking for? Do you want to look very natural? I have a lot of patients that come in and like, I don't want anyone to know I'm doing anything cosmetic, right?
Yeah. Right.
Depending on like what their vision is for aging. And so being realistic about yourself, and then also knowing like you absolutely do not have to do Botox. I think that's a big misnomer. I think that Botox is sort of like the gateway drug of cosmetics. And so everyone thinks that's where they need to start,
Yeah.
when that's not true. So if you were to say to me, okay, I am starting to notice some lines at rest, I'm not ready to dip my toe into injectable toxins,
Mm-hmm.
what could I do?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing would be easy, low lift, at home peptide products. So I actually believe that 24 will be beneficial for this.
Yeah.
But the specific peptide that I like for this is Reebox, which is by Revision.
Yep.
And that is a signaling mechanism that's designed to sort of mimic what Botox does. So it actually goes to where the neurotransmitter is that releases the acetylcholine, which is what Botox does, is it prevents that release so that the muscle doesn't contract.
Mm-hmm.
This product has 5 peptides that kind of work at different points of that sort of cascade to decrease the amount of contraction that happens.
Okay.
Now, it's not going to work as well as Botox by any means, but it's a really, really great product to use if you don't want to do Botox. You want to focus on the areas where you have those expression lines. So that may be your forehead, that may be your crow's feet, that may be your upper lip. That's going to be personal.
Okay.
And then the second thing would be microneedling.
Mm-hmm.
Microneedling works very well. There are different brands. SkinPen is the one we carry in our office, but microneedling, very minimal downtime. It's a very safe procedure. You can do that in a series of 3 typically. You can do that one in the summer. We're not worried about sun exposure after microneedling, which is nice. And then resurfacing lasers. So resurfacing lasers are wonderful, and there are ablative and non-ablative resurfacing lasers. So the ablative lasers are going to come with a slight increased risk. They're going to be more costly. They're going to have more downtime. So usually if you're new to lasers, I say start with a non-ablative. We have non-ablative and ablative lasers in our office, but mostly what I do is non-ablative. And those are going to treat your whole face.
Okay.
So when you put Botox in, that's only going to treat the line that you sort of your target muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when people have some very subtle lines, it's actually a better use of their money to do a resurfacing laser on their entire face than come in quarterly, which that's the other thing with Botox. Doing Botox once a year really isn't going to move the needle.
Yeah.
You have to commit. And so that's a big thing we talk about in Consult Club, is being able to say, can you realistically take that on? Is that in the budget? Do we have $500 to $700 or even $1,000, depending on how much toxin we're doing per quarter?
Yeah.
Do we have time in our schedule? Like, you travel for work. Are you even physically in Augusta or Atlanta or Greenville consistently enough to be getting quarterly Botox?
Right.
And then family planning. Like, are we going to be having another baby soon? Do we really want to spend our money on that? Maybe we should do a resurfacing laser. And then once we're done having kids, at that point, maybe we're ready to start talking about toxin. But I have oddly, I have a subset of patients that are therapists, and they all have like a deep line here because they spend their whole day like doing that.
Yeah.
And so for those patients, we just treat that line because they're like, hey, that one's really deep. The rest of them don't bother me as much. So it's very, very personal. And I think that one of the biggest struggles in the skincare world in general is that we look around us. It's the same thing with fashion and food and fitness. We look around us and we say, well, she looks really good and she's doing this, so I must need that, even if that's not what we need. So really taking a step back and saying, what are your specific issues? And that's what we do at Consult Club
Yeah.
is what, so we typically go through tone, texture, contour. What are your specific areas that need to be not addressed, that are bothersome to you, that from a conversational distance, that's the first thing that someone's going to notice, and then prioritize from there.
I
That's
love
a
it.
very, very long-winded answer to your question.
It's very helpful though. It's very helpful. And I'm glad that you were able to wrap with that note on Consult Club, because I do think that that is so brilliant that you are allowing women to come into a fun, social, safe space and really still get, kind of that individual, you're educating people on how to better understand their own skin and what we need. Because, one thing I've learned in launching 24, there is so much choice in the market, and it's something we all know as consumers. But I think once you really look and you decide that you need a vitamin C product, you're like, oh my goodness, where do I even begin to start? So
very, very overwhelming. And so like a little note on Consult Club, I know we're going to Greenville. We're so excited for you to be there. So what it is not, I think people get confused, like, well, what is this? This is not a sales pitch by any means. We are here to guide you. So our goal always is to guide you, to help answer questions, to help explain things. And this specific event is, and you are given a handout to work through this together, talking about what are the main concern areas, what are the treatment options for those, talking about those. We talk about kind of average pricing of those, or like how long does it take to see results for those, and then going through those lists, kind of circling what you individually may or may not need, and then talking about how do we sift through all those options to decide on the ones that are going to fit and treat or focus on your kind of top 1 to 2 concerns, and then develop like a very realistic plan for 2025 or the next 9 to 12 months. And, how do you assess change? How long are we expecting to see change? And then giving you very specific recommendations of, I would say this is the best laser for this particular problem, or this is the best vitamin C in this price point for this problem. And we are not just luxury skincare. So, ShopDerm, which is our platform where you can shop our specifically curated products, those are what we consider best in market. So they have the best clinical trial data. That's what we think really is the best option, that is also the most cost effective. So there are a lot of products out there that hit that $400 or $500 range that I don't know that they, in my humble opinion, that they are going to give you the results that you're looking for that price point. And so it doesn't mean I don't like those products. It just means that if I'm going to be choosing where to spend your time and money, that's probably not what I'm going to pick. I would rather you do a laser treatment for that price point. If we're going to spend $500, let's go get a non-ablative laser. But then also on our Shop My, we link lots and lots of other options of things that are more budget friendly. And that, again, is going to be very personal. So for you, because you struggle a little bit with redness, and we want to have a more simple routine, I probably would encourage you to purchase the, top of the line vitamin C, because it's going to have some other antioxidants in there. It's going to have some anti-aging peptides. But some people, when they're in their 25 and we're really focused on, something totally different, I may say for you, let's get the over-the-counter budget vitamin C at this point, because we're really just trying to prevent. We're not trying to actually correct any problems at this point. So, and that is what is so tricky, is how do you spend your money? Where do you spend your money? Where do you spend your time? And that's what we really want to help guide you on. So that's just a little bit more about Consult Club, but obviously you can hear I'm passionate about it. I really, it's so confusing. It's so confusing. And I just always feel bad when people come in and they're like using a product that they don't need to be using, or they're spending a ton of money on a product that's actually making their skin irritated. And it's so unique and individual for everybody, but trying to give you some tools in your tool belt to decide like where to spend your time and money.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's much, much needed.
It is. So I'm so excited to be with you. So you can, and we'll include this in the show notes, but you can go to shopderm.com / Consult Club to get tickets to the event. You absolutely can follow Jenny on socials, and those are tagged below. And then you can always book with Jenny. It's jennypancoaststyling.com. Is that right?
It's actually just jennypancoast.com.
Jenny Pancoast.
Yes.
Okay, jennypancoast.com. And then 24skincare.com. So
Yeah.
that's launching soon. And we will certainly be talking about that on Consult Club and Shop Term. And we're very, very excited. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, Jenny. We
Well,
love
thank
you.
you. I appreciate it. This was such a fun conversation, and I'm, any day where I just get to chat with a friend is a wonderful day. So thank
Fun.
you.
It's fun. That's back to like, look at us being entrepreneurs and
Right.
hanging out.
Exactly.
It's the best.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Consult Club. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share an episode with a friend, and be sure to follow along on social media at the Consult Club. You can read more on Substack at the Consult Club.